Oshi came out of nowhere and took the anime world by storm. It topped the My Anime List charts, surpassing classics like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and Attack on Titan. It has since dropped down the list, but the message is clear. People love the show, and for good reason. It's got all the bases covered. It's got good animation, good soundtrack. The source material, the manga, was written by Aka Akasaka, who, as you may know, is the author behind Kaguya-sama, which I've never watched, but I've heard good things about. The studio behind it is a bit of a question mark, but beyond that, the story is just genuinely good. The plot is great. The premise of taking an in-depth look at the behind the scenes of the Japanese entertainment industry is genuinely intriguing. And the characters? By far the highlight of the entire production. They just feel like real people. This might just be a personal preference thing, but there's just something about a well-written cast of characters that just elevates the story for me. And Oshi has that in droves. That's kind of why I'm making this video, because I feel like the characters in Oshi are worth talking about. Let's start with the twins, Aqua and Ruby, the main characters. Both of their character arcs are entirely based on how they've come to terms with Ai's death and how it impacts them going forward. We're told very early on in the story that Aqua and Ruby are destined to accomplish great things. And as the story progresses, this idea that they're destined for something great starts to legitimize, as you see Aqua and Ruby find success in their respective fields. And that's very important. The fact that they are separate. Throughout the story, Aqua and Ruby are kind of independent of each other. They're both headed towards something grand, but the paths that each of them are following are completely separate from each other. And if you start to analyze these paths of development that they're on, you get to the root of the issue, and surprise, surprise, is Ai's death. Aqua and Ruby fundamentally perceived Ai's death as different things. For Aqua, he experienced Ai's death as the death of a mother and as the death of someone he loved and he wanted to be with, which were leftover feelings from his time as Goro. This was devastating for him. We are literally shown that the light in his life disappears the moment Ai dies. That grief then morphs into anger as he focuses his attention on finding his father and getting revenge. Underneath all of that is just guilt. Aqua feels guilty about Ai's death. He blames himself for it. He thinks he failed Ai. It starts with his time as Goro. At first, Goro loved Ai as a fan loves an idol. Maybe someone you desire but can never really have kind of thing. Like an unrequited love. But then as he gets to know Ai, he starts to love Ai the individual, as someone he wants to be with. And to express that love in a physical way, he vows to deliver her baby safely. And literally the night before he gets to fulfill his promise, he gets murdered. Completely unexpected. Who could have seen that coming, right? Nobody. But he blames himself. And this pattern continues as he's reborn into Aqua. Initially, he's so happy as a baby that he completely forgot the fact that he got murdered, right? Like, it slipped his mind. He's living life. Hell yeah. But then Ai gets stabbed right in front of him. And the reality comes crashing down. He's not really a baby, is he? He's like a 25, 26-year-old man who failed to protect the girl that he loves. Can you imagine the guilt you'd feel? Especially when you have to watch them die. And from Aqua's perspective, it gets even worse because he was a doctor in his previous life. Were it not for the physical limitations of being a baby, he might have been able to save Ai's life. It's just another source of guilt. Like, it piles on for this guy. And he channels all of that guilt and anger and frustration towards his father on his quest for revenge. And it takes him down a dark and destructive path where it's obvious for everybody involved that there is not going to be a happy ending. He's completely consumed by revenge, unable to let go. There are all these things in his life that are worth living for. He has this beautiful friend group. He loves his sister. There's this girl Arima that he's in love with, but then there's also his girlfriend Akane who he's trying to be a good boyfriend to. There's this guy who loves acting, who wants to carry out his mother's dying wish for him to be an actor, who wants to be involved in the whole entertainment industry because he enjoys it. He inherited that love from Ai, but he never allows himself to indulge in these because he's so consumed by his revenge, which in and of itself is just a mask for all the guilt that he feels about Ai's death. A sense of guilt so heavy that he's scared to face it. The reason why Aqua and largely other characters of Oshinoko work is because the characters work within their motivations. A quick way to understand this is to look at how Aqua approaches acting. Initially, we're explicitly told that Aqua wants to become an actor so he can make connections in the industry in order to eventually find his father. Simply put, acting is a means for him to get revenge. So it stands to reason that when he gets an acting role, you expect him to just do the bare minimum, right? Like, why would he care about doing a good job? He just wants to get revenge. But really, that's not the case, is it? Whenever Aqua gets an acting role, He puts his best foot forward. He practices hard. He tries to understand the intentions of the scene. He tries to get into the head of the character, and he tries to work alongside his co-stars to elevate the scene. Now, I don't know about you, but that to me doesn't sound like someone who views acting as a mechanism of revenge. That's because it's not. Aqua genuinely loves acting, and maybe a large part of that comes from Ai's dying words to him. But it's not enough. For Aqua, nothing is enough. Until he gets revenge, he cannot live his life. But he full well knows that the moment he kills his father, he's gonna end up in jail. Maybe even face the death penalty. And he's prepared to do that. All the things that he loves, like his friends, his family, his acting, everything that he loves, he's prepared to throw away because Ai's death has that much of a grip on him. It's tragic. But there's no way you can convince me that this shit is not raw. I don't know how to explain it, but that shit hits you, man. It really does. But let's move on to Ruby and see how Ai's death impacted her. Now, Ruby in her past life was Serena, a young girl who was born with a chronic illness and was bedridden for most of her life. And her sort of escape from the depressing reality that she was gonna die very soon were idols. And Serena just happened to be a massive fan of Ai Hoshino, who eventually becomes her mother. She always wanted to be an idol. And that became a possibility when she was reborn as Ruby, as Ai's daughter. She had her foot in the industry. She moves on from her previous life as Serena and fully embraces her new life as Ruby. And we're shown this shift in her mental state through this beautiful mini story where Ruby struggles to learn how to dance because she has a leftover habit from her past life where she's always prepared to fall. And it's the reason why she's struggling to learn how to dance. Ai notices this and helps Ruby overcome this challenge as a mother would with her daughter. And that gives Ruby the signal that it's okay to embrace her new life. And so as Ruby becomes better and better at dancing, Serena goes further and further into becoming a distant, irrelevant memory. And when Ai dies, Ruby doesn't really feel the same guilt that Aqua does, because she experiences Ai's death strictly from Ruby's perspective. Because at this point, Serena is completely irrelevant. She's completely left her behind. So Ruby is simply just feeling grief at the fact that she lost her mother. There's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no sense of failure here. She's just grieving. And her character arc is about how she deals with that grief. Ruby takes these emotions and channels them wholeheartedly towards becoming an idol. We again find ourselves back at Ai's death. Ai's dying words to Ruby were about her becoming an idol. And much like Aqua, those words have a grip on Ruby. It's her number one driving force as to why she works so hard towards becoming an idol. Her dream is to perform at the Tokyo Dome, which she inherited from Ai, who died just before she could fulfill that dream. When a writer is able to clearly outline character motivations, and then subsequently have their characters act true to their motivations, that's when you get compelling characters. And that's Oshinoko's strong suit. The plot, the story, that's all well and done, but it's something we haven't seen before, right? Like, the reincarnation aspect, ripped from Mushoku Tensei, the son wanting to commit patricide. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to not find a story like that dating back to 1,000 years ago, right? It's a classic revenge story. But why Oshinoko works is because these characters are just so well written, and they just feel so realistic that you can't help but get behind them. And the best part is that it only gets better. The anime so far has barely worked through the manga, and what's yet to come is just beyond amazing. Having caught up to the manga, I can honestly say that I have never been more emotionally attached to a cast of characters than I am to the cast of Oshinoko. And that's a testament to Aka Akasaka's ability to write compelling characters. If you haven't watched Oshinoko, I highly recommend it. Anyways, that concludes my video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye!